The morning sky over New York City changed forever when the first ship appeared. It was Tuesday, and Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee when his phone started buzzing like an angry bee. As commander of the United Earth Defense Force, he got emergency calls often, but never one like this. "Sir, you need to see the news right now," said the voice on the other end. Jake grabbed the remote and turned on the television. Every channel showed the same impossible sight. A massive silver ship hung in the air above Manhattan, so large it cast shadows over entire city blocks. The ship looked nothing like the flying saucers from old movies. It was smooth and curved like a giant crystal, with soft blue lights running. Along its edges, it made no sound at all, just floated there like it belonged in the sky. Jake's phone rang again. This time it was General Patricia Brooks, his boss and the head of all Earth's military forces. "Morrison, get to the UN building now. We've got similar ships over London, Tokyo, Moscow, and Beijing. They're not attacking, but they're not leaving either." Jake threw on his uniform and drove through streets filled with people, pointing up at the sky. Some were taking pictures with their phones. Others were running away. Most just stood there with their mouths open, trying to understand what they were seeing at the United Nations building. Chaos ruled. Security guards tried to keep order as reporters pushed against the barriers. World leaders were arriving by the minute, their faces showing the same mix of fear and curiosity that Jake felt in his own chest. Inside the main assembly hall, President Robert Hayes was already there, along with leaders from dozens of countries. Dr. Lisa Carter, Earth's top expert on the possibility of alien life, sat at a table covered with laptop computers and scientific equipment. "Any word from the ships?" Jake asked her. "Nothing yet," Lisa replied, pushing her glasses up her nose. "But the electromagnetic readings are off the charts. Whatever power source they're using, it's unlike anything we've ever seen." When it happened, every screen in the building lit up at the same time. The lights in the room dimmed, and a voice spoke in perfect English. "People of Earth, do not be afraid. We come in peace." The voice was strange, like music mixed with the sound of wind chimes. On the screens appeared a figure that was almost human, but not quite. It was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were large and silver, and it wore robes that shifted color like oil on water. "I am Zeleneth, High Protector of the Kethmori people. We have watched your world for many cycles, and we bring urgent news." Jake felt his muscles tense. In his experience, urgent news from strangers was never good. "Your planet faces a terrible danger," the alien continued. "The Vractor Empire approaches your solar system. They are destroyers of worlds, killers of entire species. They leave nothing but ash and empty space behind them." The screen changed to show images that made Jake's stomach turn. Dead planets with cracked surfaces, cities reduced to rubble, skies filled with smoke and fire. "The Vractor will arrive in your system within 6 of your months," Zelenoth said. "Your people are young and brave, but you lack the power to defend against such a force. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is limited. You cannot win this fight alone." Jake looked. Around the room, the world leaders sat in silence, their faces pale as they watched the horrible images on the screens. "This is why we have come," the alien said, and now his voice carried what sounded like kindness. "The Kethmari are protectors of young civilizations. We have saved 47 worlds from the Vractor threat. We offer you the same protection." The images changed to show beautiful planets surrounded by shimmering barriers of light, cities that looked peaceful and safe, people who seemed happy and content. "We will place energy shields around your world," Zelenoth explained. "No weapon can pass through them. No enemy can reach you. Your people will be safe forever, free to grow and learn without fear." President Hayes stood up slowly. "What do you want in return?" "Nothing that will harm you," the alien replied. "Only that you allow us to guide your world's development. Your species must not advance too quickly, or you might become a threat to others. We will help you grow at a safe pace." Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. There was something about the way the aliens said safe pace that he didn't. Li Kuei. Dr. Carter leaned forward. You're saying we can't develop our own technology? You may develop what is appropriate for your level, Zelenoff said. We have much experience in these matters. We know what is best for young species like yours. The words hit Jake like a slap. Young species, like they were children, who couldn't be trusted with sharp objects. And if we refuse? Asked President Hayes. Then you will face the Vractor alone, the alien said, and his musical voice carried a note of sadness. I have seen what they do to worlds that try to fight them. It's not pleasant. Your weapons cannot even scratch their ships. Your people will die, and your world will burn. More images flashed on the screens. Broken spaceships floating in empty space. Cities on fire. Jake had seen enough war to recognize propaganda when he saw it, but these images looked real. We need time to discuss this, President Hayes said. Of course, Zelenoff replied. But do not take too long. Every day you delay is a day closer to the Vractor arrival. I will wait for your answer. The screens went dark. The lights came back up. For a moment nobody spoke. Then General Brooks started to chuckle. It was a low sound that seemed to come from deep in her chest. President Hayes looked at her like she had lost her mind. Something funny, General? He asked. They want to protect us, she said, and her chuckle grew into a laugh. Like we're pets that can't take care of ourselves.
Doctor.
Carter was nodding. Did you hear the way he talked? Like we're children who need someone to hold our hands. Jake felt the same laughter building in his own chest. Here were these aliens flying around in ships that could probably flatten cities, and they were offering to ... babysit Earth. Worlds, said the president of France, shaking his head. 47 worlds that said yes to this protection. 47 worlds that gave up their freedom to hide behind alien shields. The laughter was spreading now. It started with General Brooks, but soon President Hayes was grinning. Dr. Carter was trying to hide her smile behind her hand. Even the normally serious Japanese Prime Minister had an amused look on his face. They really think we're going to say yes to this, President Hayes said, wiping tears from his eyes. They think we're going to hand over our planet to alien babysitters because we're too weak and stupid to defend ourselves. Jake thought about every war humanity had ever fought. Every time someone had told them to give up, and they had refused. Every time they had been outnumbered and outgunned, and had found a way to win anyway. Well, he said, his own laughter finally breaking free, this should be interesting. Outside. The alien ships continued to hover over the world's major cities, waiting for an answer that their advanced computers had probably already calculated. They expected gratitude. They expected submission. They expected fear. What they were going to get was something entirely different. The meeting broke up with plans to reconvene in the morning. As Jake walked out of the building, he looked up at the massive ship floating over Manhattan. Somewhere up there, Zelenith was probably wondering why the primitive humans needed so much time to accept such an obvious solution. Jake smiled and headed home. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. The laughter that started in the UN building spread across the world like wildfire. By evening, every news channel was showing clips of world leaders trying not to laugh during the alien broadcast. Social media exploded with jokes and memes about cosmic babysitters and alien helicopter parents. Jake Morrison watched the late-night talk shows from his apartment, still amazed at how quickly the world had decided that the Kethmari offer was more funny than frightening. On his television, a comedian was doing an impression of the alien, speaking in a high voice while pretending to tuck a globe into bed. Now, Earth, you be a good little planet and don't develop any dangerous technologies while Mommy and Daddy. Aliens are watching, the comedian said, making the audience laugh so hard some people were crying. Jake's phone buzzed. Admiral Kate Sullivan, the head of Earth's combined military forces, was calling an emergency meeting for 6 in the morning. Jake knew what that meant. While the world was laughing, the military was getting ready to work. The next morning, Jake arrived at the Pentagon to find the building buzzing with activity. Soldiers and scientists hurried through the hallways carrying files and laptops. In the main briefing room, Admiral Sullivan stood at the front of a table surrounded by Earth's top military minds. "Good morning, everyone," she said as Jake took his seat. I hope you all enjoyed the comedy shows last night, because now we need to get serious. Colonel Danny Price, a thin man with sharp eyes, stood up and activated a large screen on the wall. We've been studying the alien ships for 18 hours now. Here's what we know. The screen showed detailed photographs of the Kethmari vessels from every angle. The ships are impressive, no doubt about it, but look at this, he pointed to several sections of the ship's hull. See these smooth areas? No weapons ports, no defensive armor plating. These ships weren't built for fighting. Major Amy Walsh, a computer specialist, took over the presentation. We've been monitoring their communications. They're using basic encryption that our systems cracked in about 4 hours. Either they're not very good with security, or they've never had to worry about anyone fighting back. Jake leaned forward. What are they saying to each other? Honestly? Confusion, Amy replied. They keep asking each other why we haven't responded yet. Apparently, the longest any other species has taken to accept their protection was 6 hours. Admiral Sullivan nodded. Which brings us to our real problem. We've been looking into this Raptor empire they warned us about. The screen changed to show star charts with red and blue markers scattered across them. The red markers show worlds the Kethmari claim were destroyed by the Vraktor. The blue markers show worlds under Kethmari protection. Colonel Price pointed to the chart. Notice anything strange? Jake studied the display for a moment, then felt his blood go cold. The protected worlds are all in a ring around the destroyed ones. Exactly, Admiral Sullivan said. Right. Like they're keeping the protected worlds separate from something, or someone. Marcus Bennett, Earth's leading theoretical physicist, spoke up from the back of the room. We've been analyzing the technology samples the Kethmari left behind during first contact. Their energy systems are incredibly advanced, but they're designed for efficiency, not combat. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means they've never had to fight anyone who could fight back, said Sophie Turner, the engineer sitting next to Dr. Bennett. Their whole civilization is built around the idea that they're always the strongest ones in the room. Admiral Sullivan pulled up another display. This is where things get interesting. We've detected energy signatures from the alien ships that match readings from several asteroid mining operations in our outer solar system. Operations that started 3 months ago. The room went quiet. Jake felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. They've been here for 3 months, at least the Admiral confirmed, long enough to study us, learn our languages, and set up mining operations. Long enough to know exactly what to say to scare us into accepting their protection. Major Walsh added more information. We've also discovered that they've been monitoring all our communications. Every phone call, every internet search, every government message. They know everything about us. Jake stood up, feeling anger building in his chest. So they spy on us for months, steal our resources, then show up claiming they want to protect us from some terrible enemy we've never heard of. It gets worse, Dr. Bennett said. We've been running computer models of their protection system. Based on the data they provided, if they put those energy shields around Earth, nothing gets in or out. No radio signals, no spaceships, nothing. We'd be completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Sophie Turner nodded. And the power requirements for those shields would drain our planet's energy resources within 50 years. After that, we'd be completely dependent on them for everything. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information.
Ow.
Jake looked around at the faces of Earth's military leaders and saw the same realization in all their eyes. The Kethmari weren't offering protection. They were offering slavery with better marketing. Admiral Sullivan stood up, which brings us to our options. We can accept their offer and become another pet species in their collection, or we can tell them no and prepare for whatever comes next. About this Raptor empire? Asked Colonel Price. Even if the Kethmari are lying about some things, there might still be a real threat out there, and we'll deal with it ourselves, Jake said, surprised by the strength in his own voice. Humanity has never backed down from a fight just because the odds were bad. Dr. Bennett cleared his throat. Actually, we might have more options than they think. Sophie and I have been working on something. He activated a tablet and showed the group a complex diagram. We've reverse-engineered some of their technology, the energy crystals they use for power, the force field generators, even their communication systems. We can't build ships like theirs, but we can build weapons that use their own technology. Against them. Sophie smiled. And the best part is, they have no idea we can do it. Their scans of our technology only looked at what we were using, not what we were capable of building. Admiral Sullivan looked around the room, so we have a choice. Become protected pets, or fight for our freedom with weapons they don't know we have. There's a third option, Major Walsh said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. We could pretend to accept their protection while we prepare. Buy ourselves time to build defenses and figure out what's really going on. Jake shook his head. That's not who we are. When someone tries to put us in a cage, even a nice cage, we don't smile and pretend to like it. We break the cage. Admiral Sullivan nodded. Agreed. Colonel Price, I want you to start coordinating with our allies. Every major military in the world needs to be prepared for what's coming. Major Walsh, keep monitoring their communications. I want to know everything they're planning. She turned to Dr. Bennett and Sophie. You two have the most important job. I want weapons, shields, and anything else you can build using their technology. We have maybe 6 months before this Fractor Empire shows up, assuming they're real. And if they're not real, Jake asked, then we'll find out what the Kethmari really want when we tell them no. Admiral Sullivan replied. The meeting broke up with everyone heading off to their assignments. Jake stayed behind to talk with the Admiral. You really think we can do this? He asked. She looked out the window toward the sky where the alien ships still hovered over Washington, D.C. Jake, humans have been fighting for their freedom since we learned to walk upright. We fought kings and emperors and dictators. We fought nature itself. You think we're going to stop now just because the bullies have fancier toys? Jake smiled. When you put it like that, those aliens picked the wrong species to mess with. That afternoon, President Hayes called a press conference. The world watched. As he walked to the podium with a calm smile on his face, the alien ship hung in the sky behind him like a reminder of the choice humanity faced. My fellow citizens of Earth, he began, we have considered the generous offer from our alien visitors. After careful thought and discussion with leaders around the world, I have a message for the Kethmari. He looked directly into the camera, and Jake knew that somewhere above them the aliens were watching. Thank you for your concern about our safety. We appreciate that you want to protect us. But Earth has never needed a babysitter, and we're not about to start now. We respectfully decline your offer of protection. The president paused, and Jake could almost imagine the panic in the alien ships as they realized their careful plan had failed. To the Kethmari, we say this. We are not children who need to be protected. We are not pets who need to be kept safe. We are human beings, and we will face whatever comes our way on our own terms. He smiled again, and this time there was something dangerous in that smile. Earth doesn't need a babysitter.
Fight!
But if someone wants to try to make us take one, they're welcome to find out why that's a bad idea. The week after President Hayes told the aliens no, something amazing happened across Earth. Countries that had been enemies for decades suddenly started working together. Russia shared rocket technology with America. China opened its laboratories. 2 European scientists. India and Pakistan began joint military exercises. Jake Morrison had never seen anything like it. He stood in a laboratory in Colorado, watching scientists from 12 different nations work side by side. They were all focused on the same goal, understanding alien technology well enough to fight it. Dr. Lisa Carter walked over to him, carrying a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. We've made a breakthrough, she said, excitement clear in her voice. This crystal contains more energy than a nuclear power plant, but it's completely stable. How does it work? Jake asked. We're not entirely sure yet, Lisa admitted. Dr. Bennett thinks it draws power from empty space itself. The aliens have been using these for thousands of years, but they never expected anyone else to figure out how they work. Across the room, Dr. Marcus Bennett was explaining something to a group of engineers. Sophie Turner stood next to him, holding what looked like a weapon made from alien crystal and human steel. The beauty of human engineering, Sophie was saying, is that we don't need to understand something perfectly to make it work. We just need to understand it well enough. She aimed the weapon at a target made of the strongest metal Earth could produce. A beam of blue light shot out, and the metal target simply disappeared. "Holy hell," whispered one of the engineers. Jake walked over to examine where the target had been. There wasn't even dust left behind. "How many of these can we build?"
As
"Many as we need," Sophie replied. "The aliens left behind enough crystal fragments to power a small army. They never thought we'd be smart enough to use them." That's when Lieutenant Commander Pete Davis burst into the laboratory, holding a laptop computer and grinning like he'd won the lottery. "I cracked their communications," he announced. "I can listen to everything the Kethmari are saying to each other." Jake felt his heart speed up. "What are they saying?" Pete's grin faded. "You're not going to like it. They're not just talking to each other, they're talking to other ships, other worlds. Jake, the Kethmari have hundreds of protected worlds, and they're all connected." He opened his laptop and showed them a screen full of alien text that slowly translated into English. "This message came in an hour ago. It's from a world called Nerith, about 50 light years from here. Listen to this." Pete read from the screen. "High Protector Zelenoth, we have noticed unusual energy readings from the human world. Our sensors show they are building weapons using sacred crystal technology. This should not be possible for such a primitive species." Jake felt cold. "They're watching us. Gets worse," Pete continued. There's Zelenoth's reply. "The humans are more resourceful than expected. We may need to move to Phase 2 earlier than planned. Prepare the pacification fleet." Dr. Carter grabbed Jake's arm. "What's a pacification fleet?" Pete pulled up another screen. "I've been going through their historical records. Every time a protected world has tried to rebel or develop advanced technology, the Kethmari send in pacification fleets. They disable all the planet's technology, remove the leaders, and install what they call management councils, puppet governments." Jake said grimly. "Exactly. And Jake, according to these records, they have pacification fleets positioned near Earth right now. Ships we can't see because they're using some kind of stealth technology." The laboratory went quiet except for the humming of computers and alien crystals. Jake looked around at the faces of Earth's best scientists and engineers. They had come so far in just 1 week, but it might not be enough. "How long do we have?" he asked. Pete checked his computer. "Based on their communications, maybe 2 weeks before they decide we're too dangerous to leave alone." Sophie Turner stepped forward. "Then we better work faster." Over the next few days, the laboratory became a place that never slept. Scientists worked in shifts around the clock. Military engineers flew in from every major country. The crystal-powered weapons multiplied from 1 to dozens to hundreds. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Captain Helen Grant was a Navy intelligence officer who specialized in reconnaissance. While everyone else was focused on building weapons, she was studying the aliens themselves. She had been analyzing every piece of video footage from the first contact, looking for clues about Kethmari society and technology. "I think I know where their ships are hiding," she announced during a briefing on Friday morning. Jake looked up from the energy readings he'd been studying, where Helen activated a wall screen that showed Earth from space. "The stealth ships aren't actually invisible. They're hiding behind our moon. Look at these gravitational readings from our lunar observation posts." The screen showed a series of charts with numbers that meant nothing to Jake, but Dr. Bennett whistled in amazement. "Those are massive gravitational distortions," he said. "Ships that size would have to be enormous." "How enormous?" Jake asked. "Each one is about the size of Manhattan," Helen replied. "And there are 12 of them." The room fell silent. Jake tried to imagine 12 ships the size of Manhattan, each one probably carrying enough firepower to destroy entire cities.
Ow.
More, Helen continued. "I've been studying the communication patterns Pete intercepted. The Kethmari aren't just talking to other protected worlds, they're getting reports from them." She pulled up another screen showing a map of the galaxy with hundreds of blue dots scattered across it. Each of these dots is a protected world. They're all reporting the same thing: unusual energy readings, signs of advanced technology, development, and what the Kethmari call signs of awakening. Dr. Carter leaned forward. "Awakening to what?" "To the truth," Helen said quietly. "Jake, I think our refusal to accept protection has inspired other worlds to question their situation. The Kethmari are dealing with rebellions on dozens of planets. Pete Davis nodded. That explains why they're so worried about us. We're not just refusing to be protected. We're showing other species that it's possible to say no. Jake felt something. That might have been hope stirring in his chest. So we're not alone in this. Might not be, Helen agreed. But there's something else. Something that changes everything. Gosh. She pulled up a new screen showing alien text that had been translated into English. This is a communication from 3 days ago. It's from someone called Fleet Commander Thork of the Vractor Empire. Jake's blood went cold. The terrible enemy the Kethmari had warned them about. Listen to this, Helen said, and began reading. To any free species receiving this transmission, we have detected signs of resistance in the Sol system. If the humans are fighting for their freedom, they will have our support. The Vractor do not forget those who stand against the protectors. The room was so quiet, Jake could hear his own heartbeat. The Vractor aren't the destroyers, he said slowly. They're the ones fighting the Kethmari. Helen nodded. According to the historical records Pete found, the Vetter were one of the first species to escape Kethmari protection. They've been fighting a guerrilla war against the protectors for over 300 years. Dr. Bennett stood up suddenly. That's why the Kethmari were so eager to protect us. They weren't worried about the Vractor destroying Earth. They were worried about the Vractor freeing us. Jake felt pieces of the puzzle falling into place. The Kethmari had lied about everything. The terrible destroyers were actually freedom fighters. The protection was actually imprisonment. And now Earth had become the center of what might be a galaxy-wide revolution. How long before the Vractor get here? He asked. Pete checked his computer. Based on the transmission timestamps and what we know about faster-than-light travel, maybe 10 days and the Kethmari pacification fleet could move at any time. They're just waiting for orders from their homeworld. Jake looked around the room at the faces of Earth's defenders. They had built weapons that could fight alien technology. They discovered the truth about their supposed protectors. Had found allies they never knew they had, but they were still just one planet. Against an empire that had been conquering worlds for thousands of years. Then we better be ready for both of them, he said. As if summoned by his words, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Pete Davis jumped to his computer and started typing frantically. Jake, he said, his face pale. The stealth ships behind the moon are moving. Kethmari pacification fleet is heading for Earth. Jake looked out the window at the blue sky, knowing that somewhere up there, ships the size of cities were coming to put humanity back in its cage. How long do we have? 6 hours, Pete replied. Jake smiled grimly. It would have to be enough. The Vractor fleet arrived 3 days early, bursting out of hyperspace like angry hornets. Jake Morrison was in the command center when the sensors started screaming. Unlike the smooth crystal ships of the Kethmari, these vessels looked like they had been built for war. They were dark gray and covered with armor plating, bristling with weapons that looked ready to tear apart anything in their path. Admiral Sullivan, we have contact, announced Major Amy Walsh from her computer station. 37 ships just appeared at the edge of our solar system. They're heading straight for Earth. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood at the center of the command room, surrounded by screens showing the positions of 3 different fleets. The Kethmari pacification ships were moving toward Earth from behind the moon. The mysterious Vractor fleet was racing in from deep space. Scattered between them were the hastily built human defense platforms that had been launched just hours before. Any communication from the Vractor? Sullivan asked. Working on it, replied Lieutenant Commander Pete Davis. His fingers flew over his keyboard as he tried to break through the alien communication systems. Got it. There's a message coming through on an encrypted channel. At the main screen flickered. And suddenly they were looking at a face that was definitely not human. The creature had green scaled skin and yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light of its ship. Sharp teeth showed when it spoke, but its voice was surprisingly calm. This is Fleet Commander Thork of the Vractor Liberation Force, it said. We know you refused the Protector's cage. Will you fight beside us for your freedom? Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Here was the terrible enemy the Kethmari had warned them about, asking to be their ally. Admiral Sullivan stepped forward. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. We're ready to fight for our freedom. What do you need from us? Kurj Sork replied simply. The Kethmari have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Today, we break that rule forever. Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the command center. On the screens, the Kethmari ships had stopped trying to hide. 12 massive vessels, each one the size of a city, moved out from behind the moon and headed directly for Earth. Incoming transmission from the Kethmari, Pete announced. Hi, Protector Zelenoth appeared on another screen, but he looked different now. Gone was the calm, protective voice. His silver eyes blazed with anger, and his musical voice had turned. Harsh? Humans of Earth, he said. You have made a grave mistake. You have chosen to ally with destroyers and criminals. You have stolen sacred technology and turned it into weapons. You have inspired rebellion across dozens of protected worlds. Jake watched as more screens showed what was happening across the galaxy. On world after world, species that had lived under Kethmari protection for centuries were rising up, using weapons similar to the ones Earth had built. This ends now, Zelenoth continued. Your leaders will be removed. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your planet will be properly managed until you learn to behave like civilized beings. The transmission cut off. And suddenly, space around Earth became a battlefield. The first shots came from the Kethmari ships. Beams of blue energy lanced down toward Earth's cities, but they struck the planetary defense grid that Dr. Bennett and Sophie Turner had built using alien crystal technology. The energy shields held, turning the deadly beams into harmless light shows. Shields are holding, Sophie reported from her engineering station. But they won't last forever against that kind of firepower. That's when the human counterattack began. From hidden bases around the world, missiles armed with crystal-powered warheads streaked into space. The Kethmari had expected primitive human weapons that would bounce harmlessly off their hulls. Instead, they got weapons that used their own technology against them. Jake watched in amazement as the first missile struck a Kethmari ship. The vessel's shields flickered and died, and a hole the size of a football field appeared in its hull. Direct hit, announced Captain Helen Grant from the Orbital Observation Post. Their shields can't handle weapons that use the same energy frequency as their own power systems. But the Kethmari weren't helpless. They began launching smaller ships, fighters that looked like flying crystals. Hundreds of them swarmed toward Earth's cities. Moving too fast for the big defense weapons to track? That's when Commander Jake Morrison got his chance to fight. He strapped himself into the cockpit of one of the new human fighters, a craft that looked like someone had bolted alien crystal engines onto a jet plane. Around him, pilots from every nation on Earth were doing the same thing. All fighters, this is Morrison, he said into his radio. Remember, these things are fast, but they're not used to opponents who fight back. Stay unpredictable and keep moving. Space battle over Earth's Pacific Ocean was unlike anything in human history. Kethmari crystal fighters moved with impossible grace, but human pilots flew with desperate courage. When the alien ships tried to form perfect formations, the humans scattered in all directions. When the aliens attempted coordinated attacks, the humans hit them from unexpected angles. Jake found himself in a dogfight with 3 crystal fighters at once. His ship bucked and rolled as alien energy beams missed him by inches. But when he fired back with his crystal-powered weapons, the results were devastating. One alien fighter simply vanished in a flash of blue light. Jake, look up, came Helen's voice over the radio. Jake glanced through his cockpit window and saw something that made his heart stop. The Vector fleet had reached Earth, and they were engaging the Kethmari ships directly. The space around Earth was now filled with 3 different types of spacecraft, all shooting at each other in a battle that lit up the sky like a deadly fireworks show. But the Vector ships were different from both. Human and Kethmari vessels. They moved like predators, striking fast and hard before disappearing behind Earth's moon or asteroid fields. Their weapons were crude but effective, designed to punch through energy shields and tear apart hull plating. This is Thoric, came the alien commander's voice over the radio. Human pilots, avoid the large Kethmari ships. We will handle them. Focus on the fighters. Jake was happy to follow that advice. The human fighters were holding their own against the crystal ships. But the massive Kethmari vessels were still pounding Earth's defense grid with enough energy to power entire cities. That's when Dr. Bennett's voice came over the communication system from the command center. All units were activating the liberation signal. If this works, every protected world in the galaxy is going to get a wake-up call. Jake didn't know what the liberation signal was, but a moment later he found out. Every human ship, every defense platform, and every weapon battery on Earth began broadcasting the same message. It was President Hayes' speech from the week before, the one where he had told the Kethmari that Earth didn't need a babysitter. But the message wasn't just being broadcast in English. Pete Davis and his team had translated it into 47 different alien languages. The languages of every world under Kethmari protection. The effect was immediate and amazing. Across the galaxy, protected worlds that had been quiet for centuries suddenly began sending their own messages. Rebellion signals, calls for help, declarations of independence. By the sacred crystals came Zelenoth's voice over the radio, and for the first time he sounded afraid. "What have you done? We've given the galaxy something it's been missing," Admiral Sullivan replied from the command center. Hope. The battle around Earth reached its peak as more Kethmari ships arrived to try to stop the liberation signal. But for every ship they sent, more Varactor vessels appeared to fight them, and from planets across the galaxy. Distress calls were coming in as species that had been protected for generations began fighting for their freedom. Jake shot down his fourth crystal fighter and realized something amazing. The Kethmari weren't winning. Despite their advanced technology and their thousands of years of experience, they were losing control of their empire because they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated what happened when someone told humans they couldn't do something. "All human forces," came Thoric's voice over the radio. "The Kethmari are retreating to their command ships. This is our chance to end this." Jake looked up and saw the 12 massive Kethmari vessels pulling back from Earth, gathering into a defensive formation. They were still incredibly dangerous, but they were no longer attacking. Admiral Jake said into his radio, "What are your orders?" "Finish it," Admiral Sullivan replied. "Show the galaxy that freedom is stronger than protection." Jake smiled and turned his fighter toward the retreating Kethmari fleet. Around him, human and Varactor ships did the same. Today, Earth had become the center of a galactic revolution, and they were just getting started. The final battle lasted 3 more hours, but Jake Morrison knew they had won the moment the first Kethmari ship surrendered. It happened when Captain Helen Grant managed to hack into their communication system and broadcast footage from across the galaxy. Dozens of protected worlds were fighting for their freedom, and many were winning. High Protector Zelenoth appeared on the main screen one last time, but he looked nothing like the confident alien who had first offered to protect Earth. His blue skin had turned pale, and his silver eyes showed something Jake had never expected to see: fear. "This is not how it was supposed to happen," Zelenoth said, his musical voice now broken and tired. "We have protected the galaxy for thousands of years. We have prevented wars, stopped disasters, kept young species safe from themselves." Admiral Kate Sullivan stepped forward at the command center. "By keeping them weak and dependent on you?" "By keeping them alive," Zelenoth replied. "Do you have any idea what will happen now? Without our guidance, these species will destroy themselves. They will build weapons they cannot control. They will fight wars that will tear apart entire star systems." Jake, still in his fighter cockpit high above Earth, listened to the exchange and felt something like pity for the alien. The Kethmari had convinced themselves they were the good guys for so long that they couldn't understand they had become the very thing they claimed to protect against. "Maybe some of them will make mistakes," Admiral Sullivan said calmly. "What?" "That's their choice to make. Freedom means the right to fail, as well as the right to succeed." Fleet Commander Thoric's reptilian face appeared on another screen. "The Kethmari fleet is withdrawing from 17 star systems. Their pacification ships are standing down across the galaxy. High Protector, your empire is finished." "Zelenoth, looked around at the screens showing his defeated fleets and the celebrating crowds on dozens of liberated worlds. What happens to my people now? Will you destroy us as we thought you would destroy others? Jake was surprised when Admiral Sullivan smiled. That depends. Are you willing to learn what it means to be an ally instead of a protector? The surrender negotiations took place on Earth, in the same UN building where the Kethmari had first offered their protection. At this time, the meeting included representatives from 43 different species, all of them newly free from Kethmari control. Jake stood in the assembly hall and marveled at the sight. Creatures of every size and shape filled the room. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange he couldn't figure out which end was the head. But they all had one thing in common. They were free. Dr. Lisa Carter, now appointed as Earth's head of alien relations, addressed the assembly. 6 months ago, we were told we needed protection. Today we're here to create something better, an alliance of free worlds working together as equals. The Galactic Liberation Alliance was born that day. Its charter was simple. No species would rule over another. No world would be forced to accept protection it didn't want. Every member would help defend the freedom of all others, the Kethmari. Were offered membership under one condition. They had to give up their role as protectors and learn to treat other species as partners rather than children. Many of them struggled with this idea, but Zelenith surprised everyone by being the first to sign the Alliance Charter. Perhaps, he said, his musical voice thoughtful, it is time for the Kethmari to learn what we can become when we stop trying to control what others become. Not all the former protected worlds joined the Alliance immediately. Some species had been under Kethmari control for so long they were afraid to make decisions for themselves. The Alliance helped them, but as advisors and friends, not as new protectors. Other worlds had problems that took time to solve. Centuries of enforced peace had left some species without the knowledge they needed to defend themselves. The Alliance helped with that too, sharing technology and training, while being careful not to create new dependencies. The biggest challenge came from species that had been bitter enemies before the Kethmari forced them to live in peace. The protection ended. Some of them wanted to restart old wars, but the Alliance had an answer for that too. Mediation teams led by humans who had experience dealing with stubborn, prideful species. Jake found himself leading one of these teams. 6 months after the liberation, he was on a world called Zarian, trying to help two species work out their differences without shooting at each other. The tall one stole our sacred mountain 300 years ago, complained Crix, a short furry creature with 6 arms. Want it back? The mountain was never yours, replied Vorth, a tall thin being with skin like tree bark. Our ancestors lived there first. Jake rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. Okay, let's try this again. Instead of fighting over who owns the mountain, why don't you share it? Why, Crix, your people could use the lower slopes for their crystal farms. Fourth, your people could keep their meditation temples on the peak. Both aliens stared at him like he had suggested something impossible. Share, Crix asked. But then neither of us would control it. Sometimes not controlling something is better than fighting over it, Jake replied. On Earth, we have a saying. The best solution is the one where nobody gets everything they want, but everybody gets something they need. It took 3 more days, but eventually both species agreed to share the mountain. Jake flew back to Earth, feeling tired but satisfied. This was what freedom looked like. Messy, difficult, but ultimately worth it. Earth had changed too. The planet that had laughed at alien protectors was now the unofficial capital of galactic freedom. Scientists from dozens of worlds worked in laboratories that had once been secret military bases. Diplomats from species that had never spoken to each other learned to work together in meetings held in every major city. The biggest change was in Earth's children. Jake often walked through Central Park in New York and saw human kids playing with young aliens of every description. They didn't care that some of their friends had scales or fur or extra arms. They just cared about having fun together. Dr. Marcus. Bennett and Sophie Turner had become famous throughout the galaxy for their work combining different species technologies. Their research station orbited Earth like a small moon, constantly producing new innovations that made life better for everyone in the Alliance. Lieutenant Commander Pete Davis ran the Alliance's communication network, making sure that every member World could talk to every other member world instantly. His proudest achievement was the Universal Translator that let any species communicate with any other species in real time. Admiral Sullivan had become the Alliance's military coordinator, but her job was very different from what it had been during the war. Instead of preparing for battles, she helped member worlds build defenses and train their people to protect themselves. The Alliance military only fought when a member was attacked, and only until the threat was over. The anniversary of Liberation Day was celebrated across the galaxy. On Earth, Jake stood on the same balcony where he had first seen the Kethmari ships 6 months earlier. But now, the sky was filled with ships from 43 different worlds, all of them here to celebrate freedom. President Hayes gave a speech that was broadcast to every Alliance world. A year ago, someone told us we needed protection. Today, we know the truth. The only protection worth having is the kind you build together with your friends. Jake smiled as he watched alien children playing in the streets below, while their parents talked and laughed together. The Kethmari had been wrong about many things, but they had been especially wrong about one thing. Young species weren't too weak to defend themselves. They just needed the chance to try. As night fell over Earth, Jake received a message on his communicator. It was from a species on the far edge of the galaxy, one that had just learned about the Alliance. "We heard you refuse to be protected," the message said. "Can you teach us how to be free?" Jake grinned and started typing his reply. "We'd be happy to help. But remember, freedom is something you have to win for yourself. We can show you how. But you have to do the work." He sent the message and looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, another species was about to discover what humans had learned. The best protection comes from the courage to stand up and protect yourself. The galaxy was free, and it was just the beginning.